Elementary school years, I remember a little bit because I did a little bit of elementary school here in my hometown. And with my parents with new jobs, we had to move to different communities. And where we moved to Iglulik, I was at the age of 10. And I was in grade 4. And it was kind of neat just being at that age, get to see different communities and the different languages. So while living in the east in Iglulik, I got to learn their language, and coming home, I was in grade 7. So it was kind of neat while thinking now today that I was pretty lucky to be able to learn some of the language as you come from the west. The language has lost, like you were speaking as with my mother the other day, and that I got to experience, and I know a little bit of the language, the Eastern style. And growing up here at the age of 10 or 13, that's when I got to go do my hunting and camping and with my brothers, my father, my grandfather, and get that cultural experience of just being out on land, how to cut a caribou, how to pluck a duck, or just knowing about the weather changes and the land changes. So I was pretty fortunate as a kid from elementary school going into high school. And in my high school years, from grade 10 to 12, I was a national Aboriginal role model in 2007. 13 of us across Canada who are selected each year, 3 of each of Métis, Inuit, and First Nations. And from the Nunavut area, I was selected as one of the role models for that year of 2007. And it was a good experience. With the program, we got to explore other communities in Canada and did our presentations about our passes and experience about the cultural. For my own experience, how I became a role model was I was a mentor to elementary students at the elementary school, and every day, Monday to Thursday, we spent at least 3 or 4 hours a day with a student in the evenings. And it was more of a buddy system. That's the way I saw it as, and just helped this young child to do homework, play sports, coaching, you name it, and take him out sliding or take him out fishing for the day. And through that was one of my experiences. And also the plebiscite that happened in 2007, and that's when the youth has spoke that year saying enough is enough about the suicide rate, and became a alcohol plebiscite where the youth wanted to restrict alcohol into this community. And I was very fortunate being a role model that same year, and I got to speak out as a youth to our community and letting the message know that we want restrictions in our community, and just helping out the peers, I guess. But it was a neat experience, and for that being recognized, and knowing still today, that there is an alcohol committee today, and knowing that our youth made that accomplishment, and being recognized through that role model, and the alcohol plebiscite that we did. I was also recognized from program, I'm not 100% sure, but there was one of 6 Canadians who got to go to Barcelona, Spain that same year and participate in the Congress, Worldwide Conference of Rights of a Child. And I was selected as one of 6 Canadians who got to go. And being there and my subject was to learn in those 2 weeks there was on education and just getting the experience of learning other education systems in other countries, and being from an isolated community of Canada. We're pretty actually lucky to have a good education system in our community. And again, some of the youth today don't take the advantage of getting their education done in, these isolated small communities.
Why do you think that is?
It could be with family issues. It could be, I guess, money issues that kids have to work, or it's just a lot of peer pressure for an isolated community where it comes into drugs and alcohol. And today, the ages of between 13 and 18, that's where the pressure comes in, and finding out who your friends are, and it's hard to do that for a small community. And I know I've gone through that in my high school. Being at that age, I got to experience it, and pretty glad that I had pretty strong parents who supported me and on what I did, and pretty happy about it. Was the peer pressure. I know that, but it's just 2 letters, no, and that was always in my mind in high school, was just saying no, and the pressure was a lot easier and not a heavy lift on your shoulders of pressure for me. But I know for a lot of my friends that I grew up with, they experienced it, and I know some of them caught into the cycle of it at times and got out of the cycle, in and out of the cycle, I guess. But it was a lot of pressure of just trying out drugs, or getting trying to drink, if it's a typical Saturday dark night. We only have the sun 2 hours a day, middle of the winter, so, and that's where depression hurts too, is not getting that vitamin D in a community, and a lot of people staying indoors, and that's where pressure comes in, and it's easy for them to fall into getting pressured. And I was pretty happy that I was supported, and I was able to support some friends who had a hard time saying no. And being in high school, and this was always a safe house, as my parents' house. We would just come here, hang out, play video games, or play music, or go for a drive. That was nice. And I was able to help out friends, because it was easy for me to say no, but just watching my friends was, the challenge for me to help them out. Best things, I got to play. We had the Grizzlies back, and I was part of the Grizzlies from grade 7 to grade 12 every year. Played sports, coached, and school trips, those were a good experience, and I enjoyed it. I worked for them, and just being able to absorb all the learning about cultural experience, schooling, and preparing for college. Those are all the excitements, and on what kind of trade I wanted to get into. I was part of a a pre-trades program going into grade 10, and that's where I got to find out what trade I wanted to do, and just trying out different trades, from carpentry, mechanics, to plumbing, to welding. And in those 2 years, we just got to experience on different types and do work experience out in the community. And doing work experience, I tried out welding, and I found it very interesting. And I did some welding and realized it's not a big boom in our community, so why not try go for welding and do something different. And so I was in a pre-trades program for 2 years and focus on welding after I got out of high school. I took off for college and did a pre-employment welding course through NAIT in Alberta. It was a 16-week course, and once that was done, I worked for a company called Northern Transportation Company Limited, based in Hay River. And I worked for them as a welder, repairing tugboats and barges that they do every year to ship up cargo through the Northwest Passage. And it was a nice experience because growing up as a kid, I got to see this barge come in every fall, middle of the night, bright lights right in the ocean. And on my season off, being a young adult, coming home and I would see a barge frozen up on the ice on a shore. You know, I got to look at it and say, hey, I got to repair that last year. So it was kind of neat. And I did that for one season. And the next year I worked for mining for BHP Billiton. I was in a warehouse. I was a warehouse laborer for 1.5 years for them. And I got to experience operating equipment, to forklifts, to loaders, and just learning how a warehouse system works. And it was neat. Expanding of the trades world, right? I got a little bit of experience on welding. I got some experience on warehousing, and I got some training on forklifts, loaders. And it's kind of neat for being I was 20 years old, working at this mine site, and just getting the experience and absorbing it. And just recently, 6, 7 months ago, I just got back into welding again as a welding apprenticeship opened up with Kingland Ford as an apprentice welder for them. And now today I'm repairing haul trucks, to graders, to dozers, mobile equipment for the site. And it's very different from NTCL, so again, I'm learning a lot just on welding on different equipment. And I'm enjoying the job and should be going to school soon. The apprenticeship is 3 years. And we do work basically 10 months out of the year and then go to school for 8 weeks, return to work, and then you're on to your second year apprenticeship. And my apprenticeship is a 3-year program. So by the 4th year, I'll be a journeyman. So,
good career.
Yeah. It's kind of nice. I get to be home 2 weeks at a time, 2 weeks at work. Being home half of the time, I can look after my mother, and which gives the family a break. And knowing someone is home during the day with my mother, and no one checking up on her throughout the day as they're at work. So I enjoy it, and I know my mother enjoys it because I'm home during the day half of the time.
Yeah, that must be such a help for your family.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. There's a lot of options out there on what I want to do. First, I just want to focus on getting my Red Seal ticket as a welder, and I'll see how things go from there. I'm not too sure. I jumped as a kid that I wanted to be a school shop teacher. I've always, jumped a bit, and you're working with students all day long. And you're also playing with tools during the day. So I've always wanted to be a shop teacher, and just getting that experience too as being a trades world right now at a young age is pretty neat. And absorbing it on how the trades world work. That way in the future I can, be able to say to youth that it's a different world being in the trades and what you have to be prepared for. And, I could see myself going back to school after I do this apprenticeship. I could still see myself living at home, basically, yes. After being at this age, I want to explore, Canada or the world, right? I want to be a traveler. I want to, through this program, I'm getting paid and having time off at the same time. So, maybe at the same time, I want to go traveling and just get absorb the experiences right now. But 10 years from now, if I get all my schooling done in the Red Seal, if I go to school, I could see myself coming back home. And, I want to become a shop teacher, and that's sort of where my goal is at in 10 years from now. And just being able to work with youth again at that age. I would say it's hard. I'm not perfect, but it's good where it's at right now because they just started with this pre-trades program about 6 years ago. And that's neat too because in the north, in every isolated community in Nunavut, the trades is a big boom right now with carpentry to plumbing to housing maintenance, a trade that common up in the north. It gets some students prepared on what kind of trade they would like to do or what they want to do right away. And this one just gives them a step ahead. And that's one of the, where the education is pretty good at right now. And just knowing, being on a trade side right now, I just know right now. In the community, we grew up in a few different communities, but this is where I mostly grew up. And being at the age from 5 to 10 years old, language was my first language. All my friends spoke language to me, and my parents also spoke English to me. And moving to the east, to Iglulik, where we as a family spoke English first, me and my brothers and sisters. And living over there, we're known as Qaujimajatuqangit, means white people, because we couldn't speak the language over there. So just living over there, just being called that, I wanted to learn the language, and just living there in 3 years, I got to learn quite a bit of the language. And by the time I came home in that 3-year period, I was able to speak it, write it, and understand it. And then coming home, I was bilingual actually. And a little bit I was able to speak Inuktitut and English when I came home. But being in grade 7 at the age of 13, all my friends again were speaking English as their first language. And just being from grade 7 to grade 12, I lost a lot of Inuktitut just being back in the West. Inuinnaqtun, not a very lot, but I can understand it at most times, and the way it is today. And my mom still teaches me a little bit at a time throughout the days. She uses hand language too, is to help me out on how I understand it. And slowly by day, I do learn of Inuinnaqtun and getting the face and hand expressions on what she says makes it a bit easier to learn and understand. It's hard to say for me. Like, I'm gone half of the time, and my first priority would be my mother, and I don't know what's going on in the community, but my sister-in-law is bilingual, and being her at a young age, she can easily they're looking for translators for elders or writers, and the job she's at today is a lot easier for some of her coworkers, because if an elder comes into the health center, she's able to understand the language and respond to her coworkers. Because again, same thing, the Inuinnaqtun and Inuktitut is just a bit different, and to have that, you can easily pick up the language.
So your sister-in-law speaks Inuktitut?
She speaks Inuktitut as her first language. So, and living here in the West where it's Inuinnaqtun, she's can pick it up right away to understand our language. Every year we got to go hunting, day trips throughout the days on how to, skin a caribou or how to do fish nets properly certain times of the year. And just being a young teenager, being in high school, a lot of, I guess, the education, focus on day trips on how, they give you a lesson how to skin a caribou on your own, what's the proper procedures on how to skin the legs first, and just learning the steps on how to, what a young man should be doing on a cultural side. I've just had a first meeting and it is more of an introduction, but from hearing about it, basically the goal is wondering why the rate is so low in Nunavut today for young men. And what we'll be doing is looking at from education, from elementary school to high school to the trades world to government jobs, on why the rate is so low, and just doing research on why it would be so low. And our goal is to figure out steps on how you can change the ways of education for young men. It could be something in a school that they might not be offering. Example would be the pre-trades program. If they had that in every community in Nunavut, you'd see at least 7 or 8 boys more go to school, and then, they'll be working with their hands. And just imagine 8 to 10 boys per community. You're looking at least quite a bit of young men who can be successful in a few years. And that's just an example as for one of them. And we'll just be doing research on how we can get that rate up again in Nunavut. This was in 2004, I believe, is when I got into grade 10. And it was a pilot project that the Nunavut Education Act did. And they want to focus it on in this community. And we're actually the first pre-trades class in Nunavut to graduate. And showing that results, that's the year we graduated, we had the highest classmates that graduated that year.
Biggest graduating class?
Yes.
And you think it's because of the pre-trades program?
I believe so, because in the school system we had 2 different grade 10s, 2 different grade 11s, 2 different grade 12s. And basically the pre-trades program, we stayed with one teacher most of the time, because he focused on school first, and then on the side we'd be doing trades, just doing carpentry, plumbing, different little courses here and there, mechanics, and we just it was differently educated through those 2 years, because you focus on the trades and school at the same time, compared to our regular high school, grade 10, 11, and 12. So our classes was a bit different in high school. A few of them are doing apprentice mechanics. I know 2 of them today. Myself as an apprentice welder. Couple of them are haul truck drivers for the mine, at the same mine. Some of them went off to school and did some automotive mechanics and small repairs. Some of them are working for the local community as work their way up as a laborer and going into carpentry or plumbing. And now they have that option on what trade they want to do. So just being part of that program, it just makes you on what you want to do in the future for yourself, on what kind of trade you want to do.
Yeah, does it really help prepare you?
It basically helped prepare it. And for me right away, being in grade 10, the first year of that pilot project, that's when I got to try welding and realize, welding's not a big boom in our community. And that's where I decided I want to become a welder. Growing up with a family, my aunts, my mother, they were all part of education. And, being at that stage, I saw myself, I want to become a shop teacher. I want to be, have a trade in my hand. I want to work with youth. And education is everywhere today. You're surrounded by it. It could be in the evenings. And with this new band we just started, I guess we call ourselves the Boys Downstairs. And, we have our young fiddler who was taught from his dad. And, with his knowledge, teaching us boys how to play backup music for him. And it sure taught us a lot. And yet, from us boys playing with the guitars and singing music or singing songs, he's being able to learn, how to play backup as a fiddler. So we both learn from each other. And it's great, we're actually being taught from a 14-year-old. And it's a lot of fun. I don't know how my mother puts up with us middle of the night when we have the sound going. But, and, that's education right there. It could start from, I see my sister being a teacher every day to her child, and he's 7 months old. And just see, for an isolated community, you just have to stay positive and being able to educate any person each way, even just being nice to someone on the road. If you see them carrying a box of groceries, just give them a ride home. Or, that's just being generous and being nice. And, and that's where education starts from. Maybe they were taught from their grandparents or parents to, if you see someone, and give them a ride if they need to. And education comes everywhere, I guess. And being, the school too is, the main place. And, say 6-7 years ago when we had the Grizzlies program, a lot of youth then, when I was in high school, kids wanted to go to school. They wanted to be there enjoying sports. They wanted to, and, on top of that, you had to keep your grades up. So they know they had to go to school. They had to work hard to earn what they wanted to do, and being able to go on school trips. And that's what was a big thought to this community, was when we had the Grizzlies up and running, was that, lacrosse became a big sport in this community for a few years. If you want to play lacrosse, you had to keep your grades up. If you want to go on a lacrosse trip, you had to keep your grades up. And just the Grizzlies being there, it showed the community and showed the youth that, if you want to play a sport or get a trade, you have to work in school. And, the youth has been pretty successful over the years, just, these programs going of through the trades program to sports and the traditional culture. And the youth here in Kugluktuk are, I guess, pretty lucky to have a good school system going, coming from the sports, the traditional knowledge to the trades, and it's going good.
Yeah. Sounds like it worked for you anyways.
Oh yes, it did. I sure enjoyed over the years being in high school. If I could do it all over again, I would.